7, that we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. That we have to have a humble heart and we have to ask. Now, nowadays, there's a lot of very popular movies that demonstrate the Bible. There's new TV shows, House of David, The Passion of the Christ, all these movies, but there's a holiday, a Jewish holiday, that people don't really realize has been made into a lot of movies. Because it's not really a Christian movie. In fact, they made a series of movies and a series of TV shows by the name of The Purge. That's actually based on the Bible. I don't know if you know that, but if you turn to the book of Esther, there was a purging, and then there was another day of purging because a queen asked for it. She had a humble request. In the days of the Jewish captivity, they were brought into exile, and the king at the time was not pleased with his wife. He put her away, so he had like a beauty pageant. And there was a man in his kingdom who was Jewish named Mordecai who had saved his life on one particular occasion. And he found out about this contest. He had a beautiful niece named Esther. And he told her to join the contest. Lo and behold, she ends up winning. She gets married to the king. There's a movie about this too, A Night with the King. That's a good Christian movie. And she marries this king. And come to find out, there's a man in the kingdom named Haman, one of the chief advisors, and he hates the Jewish people. Whenever his name is mentioned, people used to boo. That's correct. And he comes up with this plan to wipe out the Jewish people. And he tricks the king into deciding it that on the appointed day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, that whoever wanted to, whoever hated the Jewish people, could attack them, murder them, kill them, take all of their stuff, and the Jewish people would be eradicated out of the kingdom. The king, Xerxes, he didn't know that his new wife was Jewish. And so she has this tension, this dilemma. She wants to ask the king, just like our step says, she's going to have to make a humble request. And so Mordecai, her uncle, says, hey, for such a time as this, God has raised you up, and if you don't intercede, then God will find somebody else, and you'll perish. You need to ask the king. And so she went to the king boldly, and when she wasn't invited to, which was could have meant her life, and the king welcomed her into the palace and said, what is it, Esther, that you want? And says, I'm throwing a feast, and I want you to come. By this time, Haman was so angry. He was so bitter about the Jewish people that he had taken to his own expense to build 10 gallows so he could hang the Jewish people on this day of the purge where they would wipe them out. And so she made the request, and he came, and the king came, and the king says to her at the feast, well, what is it that you really want to ask me? And she had prayed, and she had fasted. And she said, I know, O king, that you didn't understand what you signed, but you made a decree that me and my people would be wiped out. And the king says, I didn't know that I did that somebody tricked me. It was Haman. And Haman went in, and he realized the tides had turned against him. And he ran to Esther kind of pleading for his life and grabbed her perhaps by the leg. And the king saw it. He said, you're getting handsy with my wife. Grab this man, arrest him, bind him up. And he said, if only I had a place where I could punish him. And one of the servants said, I saw him building 10 gallows. How about we hang him on his own gallows? And so they hung Haman on the gallows that he had built. But in those days, when the king made a decree, you couldn't just erase it. You couldn't reverse it. And so he says to Esther and to Mordecai, hey, here's my ring. You have to figure this out. And so they made a new law that if anybody had a heart to help the Jewish people, they could aid them with weapons. They could come alongside of them. And if anybody attacked the Jewish people, whoever they killed, they could take their stuff. And so in chapter 9, there's about to be a civil war. There's about to be a literal purge. It was a day of mass murder. If you wanted to kill somebody on that day and they were Jewish, or if you wanted to kill somebody on that day and they were trying to kill somebody Jewish, it was just going to be a bloodbath all over the kingdom. And so everybody got their pitchforks and their swords. It was like gangs of New York. And when the morning dawned, the fighting began. And God's